Hey everyone, welcome to this lecture video where we're going to talk about how to get a dominant impression in your descriptive writing. So when we write descriptively, it means we have to gather and present details about a topic. Ultimately, we want our descriptions to create a feeling or a mood in our readers. So the details that we choose and the way we present them on the page create what we call the dominant impression. So basically the dominant impression is the mood or the feeling or atmosphere or sort of the vibe that you want your readers to walk away with after they read your piece. It's important to remember that not all details in your piece are going to be related to sight. So you're going to want to include sensory details or sensory imagery in your writing. That means you want your readers to experience the sights, the sounds, the smells, right? All of the senses in your writing. It's easy to fall back into just describing the sight because it's kind of the first sense that many of us go to, but it's important that you include maybe like a 3D experience, right? Think of it that way for your readers. So they're not just experiencing that one sense, but they're getting kind of the whole picture with as many senses as possible. You're not always going to include all senses in all descriptions, okay? I just want to make that clear. If you're describing an empty room, for example, you're probably going to talk about sights. You're going to talk about sounds, maybe smells. You're probably not going to talk about tastes if you're describing an empty room. So think about what makes the most sense and what kinds of sensory imagery details in general will help evoke that mood and that feeling that you want your readers to get from it. We're going to go through some examples in this lecture to help you get a feel for what I'm talking about, and then you can practice it on your own. So the first thing I want you to do is just pause this video and read this example. And I just want you to think about whether you feel like this dominant impression of this piece is positive or negative. Don't worry about anything else right now, just positive or negative. Go ahead and pause it and read. So now that you've read the piece, are you coming away with a positive or a negative impression from it? I think we're probably all going to agree that the connotation here and the feeling, the impression is negative. There are a lot of words, phrases, adjectives, and descriptions in this piece that help kind of provide this feeling, this negative feeling. So some of them are bleak, shabby, phrases like we were put to sleep instead of we were tucked in. See how the difference in phrasing there makes for a negative connotation. Shadeless lamps, bare floorboards, thin white spreads, orphaned condition. And there are more, but these are just some of the first words and phrases that popped out to me as helping to provide that sort of negative feeling. So let's get a little bit more specific. What is the feeling that you walk away with after reading that piece? Is it happy? Do you feel welcomed in that house? Would you feel unwelcome? Does it feel like a mess? It probably does feel like a mess, although mess isn't really a feeling. So the dominant impression we're really going with here, I'm going to give you a second to pause the video and think about it. I'm going to say the most obvious answer here is unwelcome. It really doesn't feel like a place that I would want to visit. I don't know about you. All right, let's look at a second example. This example comes from Harry Potter. So take a minute, pause the video, and read this one and determine if you think it's a positive or negative dominant impression. I think it's pretty clear that this impression of this place is a lot more positive than the first one that we read. Some of the words and phrases that I see that stand out to me as being positive here are things like thousands and thousands of candles, right? That just kind of leads to a feeling positive, that this place is positive. The tables were laid with glittering golden plates and goblets. Pale lanterns in the flickering candlelight. Velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. And then that last phrase, open to the heavens. Those phrases and those little images all work together to build this feeling that is certainly way more positive than the grandma's house piece that we read before. So let's get a little more specific. What is the feeling you get from reading that Harry Potter piece? Is it unwelcome, sad, exciting, welcoming, afraid, confused? Take a minute and think about it. I think you're probably going to feel a lot more welcome in this space than we did in Grandma's house. I would say welcoming is the most dominant impression here. There are other words we could use. There's sort of a feeling of magical, a feeling of magic in the air. But I think overall this place feels really welcoming and pretty exciting. So now what I want to do is go back to this Harry Potter piece and let's just tweak a few words and phrases to change the dominant impression. I want to show you how easy it is to go from positive or negative or to change the impression. That way, when you start writing your own piece, if you're not quite getting the impression you want, you'll see that all you need to do is tweak some phrases and some wording here and there, and you can change the impression of your piece. So going back to the Harry Potter piece, I've highlighted here the phrases and the words that I think make this piece are the strongest words and phrases to give this piece its current impression. So the thousands and thousands of candles, these are essentially the things that we looked at before. So I'm going to take a minute and rewrite these to be less positive. Take a minute, pause the video, think about how you might change some of these words or phrases. You could even jot some down if you want. All right, so here's my revised dominant impression of this piece. Take a minute and read it to yourself. So what do you think after reading this? I think it's pretty clear that the impression of this place is not nearly as positive as it once was, and that rather than feeling welcome or like it was a magical place, if this is the description I read, I would feel uneasy, unwelcome. It even feels a little bit creepy to me. So just from changing 5 or 6 words and phrases and images, I was able to change the feeling of that complete piece. And so it will be that easy for you too, once you kind of get the hang of how to manipulate your words and your phrases to get the impression that you want. And also one thing to keep in mind, your readers are all individual people with individual experiences and backgrounds that they're bringing to your reading. So it's not the case that every single reader is always going to get the impression from your writing that you want them to get. But overall, the vast majority of readers are going to come away with the impression you're looking for if you do this well. So what does all this have to do with your descriptive writing project? Well, the biggest thing for you to think about when you're writing in your descriptive article is your dominant impression. You have to have a dominant impression for your piece. So what is the feeling you want your readers to come away with? If your descriptive piece is about, let's say, music, maybe you're going to describe a song or an artist and the kind of music that they put out. How do you want your readers to feel about that music? Is it exciting, upbeat music? Is it slow, sad music? Whatever you want your readers to feel about that particular music is what your impression will be. This is going to be the focus of your entire piece. So really, I want you to put some time and really think about what this dominant impression is going to be, what you're going for. You need to know that before you start writing, because everything that you write should kind of go towards creating that impression. So the first thing to do is just to think about whether the impression is going to be positive or negative. That's the easy part, right? You want your readers to feel positive or negative about what you're writing. Are you describing something gross or scary or terrible, or are you describing something amazing and awesome that you want people to be excited about? Then once you figure out positive or negative, get a little bit more specific and think about what that mood is that you want people to walk away with. Excitement, fear, unease. There are lots and lots of moods that you could pick from here, so just think about what makes the most sense for whatever you're going to describe. And then start maybe making a list of details, images, senses, all of the things that you can think of that would help get that feeling across to your readers. And then once it comes time to start writing in actual paragraphs, you can kind of pull from that list and easily start to build your impression. All right, that's the end of the dominant impression lecture. If you have any questions about this or you need help, please ask. You are going to practice this in the discussion and in your practice assignment. So don't worry. Those are practice spaces. You're not going to get anything wrong. That's a chance for you to try it out and see what happens and get some feedback. All right, you'll do all that before you actually start writing your project. So let's have fun with it.